My twin sister Emma started watching me like she was taking notes after I got engaged, and soon she was wearing my exact haircut and recording my phone calls without permission. On my wedding day, she brought me champagne in the bridal suite until I passed out, then she put on my wedding dress and walked down the aisle to marry my fiancé. I woke up locked in the bathroom while she was saying her vows in my voice, but she made one mistake during the unity candle ceremony that changed everything. When I announced my engagement to David at Sunday dinner, Emma burst into tears. You see, she'd just been dumped again by the 5th guy that year. He said I was too intense, she told me later while staring at my ring. After that, I started noticing her watching me. Not in a creepy way at first, more like she was taking notes. She'd watch how I moved my hands when I talked and started dressing exactly like me. David mentioned she'd been asking about our relationship, which felt sweet, but everything changed after the Tom incident. She seemed so excited when he showed interest, until everything crumbled, because on their very first date, she snapped at their waitress over her forgetting to bring her a straw. Emma took it as a sign that she was flirting with Tom. I had just managed to convince her that she would find someone better when it happened. During my office party a week later, Emma saw him flirting with me. I tried to shut it down ASAP, but it was too late. She saw us. The transformation started small after that. Emma got my exact haircut and grilled me about my skincare routine. I just want to look polished like you, she said, and I felt guilty for being weirded out. I caught her practicing my smile in the bathroom mirror and stood there frozen in the doorway for a full minute, watching her face contort into expressions that belonged to me. Then things got genuinely scary. I was fast asleep at 2 a.m. when I heard my own laugh echoing from her room. Turns out she had recorded my phone calls without telling me. At the time, I tried to tell myself that I was imagining things, and for a while it worked, until a few weeks later, when I borrowed her laptop to make an Excel spreadsheet for work. Right there, sitting in her files, were dozens of spreadsheets documenting everything about me and David's relationship, color-coded by category, pet names in blue, inside jokes in green, intimate details in red. I thought that at least someone in my family would see through her crazy. But no. When I finally got them to confront Emma with me, she burst into tears. A classic. Why is Sarah making me feel crazy? They told me to stop being a bridezilla, and I was left standing there completely speechless, wondering what the protocol was for your twin sister stalking you. So when my wedding date finally came around, Emma was the last person I wanted to invite, because even aside from her quirkiness, she was known for having dramatic meltdowns, screaming at my cousin's wedding that everyone gets love but me, causing a scene at Dad's birthday when he didn't pay enough attention to her. But my parents forced me, saying she was finally getting help and I was being cruel. She's your twin, my mother said. She's trying so hard to be better. So I caved. Emma weaponized that invitation immediately. She started showing up at my workplace pretending to be me, telling my coworkers I had family emergencies. She knew every project I was working on, every deadline, every piece of office gossip. By this point, I knew Emma was a psycho bitch, but I never would have expected her to bring David into it. I was by myself when he texted me. I can't believe I ran into you today. I love our little moments. My heart stopped. I hadn't seen him. Turns out Emma had gone to his office pretending to be me. He'd kissed her hello. When I tried to tell him what happened, he thought I was forgetting things from wedding stress. Babe, you literally ate half my sandwich, he said, concerned. Are you feeling okay? When I showed my mom the texts, even she looked worried and promised to get Emma tested for something at least. Fast forward 6 months later to my wedding day. I hadn't heard from Emma since that day with David, and she showed up early with champagne and strawberries, her energy vibrating at a frequency that made my teeth hurt. My hands were shaking from nerves, but I noticed hers were too. She insisted on toasting repeatedly and kept refilling my glass. Hydration is important for photos. The room started tilting after the 3rd glass. Emma steadied me with this fake concern. Here, sit down. You look pale. The room kept spinning faster. Through my blurry vision, I saw her pull my wedding dress out of a bag she'd brought. What are you doing? I tried to ask, but my tongue felt like cotton. Becoming you, she said calmly, like she was telling me the weather. I've practiced everything. She placed me on the floor almost gently, then leaned close. I know David's favorite positions, how he likes his eggs, that birthmark on his inner thigh. That's when I blacked out. I woke up on the bathroom floor, my cheek pressed against cold tile. The room swayed as I tried to lift my head. My wedding dress hung on the back of the door, but something was wrong. Emma wasn't there. I crawled to the door, my limbs heavy and uncooperative. The handle seemed miles away. When I finally reached it, my fingers fumbled uselessly, locked. From the outside, through the fog in my brain, I heard voices in the main suite. My mother's laugh, David's voice, Emma responding in my exact tone, using my inflections. The champagne glasses clinked again. I dragged myself to the toilet and forced my fingers down my throat. Nothing came up but bile. The substances were already in my system. I splashed water on my face, then drank directly from the faucet, trying to dilute whatever she'd given me. The bathroom window was painted shut. I grabbed my makeup bag and found nail scissors, working at the paint seal while my hands shook. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time meant nothing in this drugged haze. Footsteps approached the door. I dropped to the floor, closing my eyes. The lock clicked. Emma entered, already wearing my dress. It fit her perfectly. Of course it did. We were identical twins. She'd even done her makeup exactly like mine, down to the beauty mark I always drew above my lip. She knelt beside me, checking my pulse. Her engagement ring, my engagement ring, caught the light. She'd thought of everything. The photographer wants some getting ready shots, she said conversationally. I told them you had a nervous breakdown and locked yourself in here. They all believed me. She dragged me into the bathtub, my body limp and unresisting. The porcelain felt like ice through my slip. She turned on the shower, cold water shocking my system. I gasped, sputtering. Can't have you making noise, she said, adjusting the water to a trickle. This should keep you quiet and conscious. I want you to see everything. She left, locking the door again. I lay there, water dripping on my face, fighting to stay awake. If I passed out now, it would all be over. The cold helped clear my head slightly. I could hear the wedding party gathering in the suite, my bridesmaids' voices, Emma laughing at their jokes, using my laugh. She'd studied me so well. I pulled myself up, gripping the tub edges. My phone. Where was my phone? I searched my clutch, the pockets of my robe hanging on the door. Gone. Of course. The scissors. I still had the scissors. I stumbled back to the window, working at the paint. My fingers kept slipping. Blood smeared the white frame where I'd cut myself. Sarah, we need you. My maid of honor called through the door. Only it wasn't me she wanted. Coming? Emma chirped in my voice. Just fixing my mascara. I heard them leave for photos. The suite went quiet. This was my chance. The window finally cracked open. Fresh air hit my face like salvation. But we were 3 stories up. No fire escape, no ledge. Just a straight drop to concrete. I turned back to the door. The lock was simple, the kind you could pick with a bobby pin. I found one in my hair, hands steadying with purpose. The lock clicked open. The suite was empty. Champagne glasses and makeup scattered everywhere. I stumbled to the hotel phone, but the cord had been cut. Emma had planned for everything. My legs gave out. I crawled to the door, peering into the hallway. Empty. Everyone was at photos. I needed to get to David, to anyone who would listen. The elevator seemed impossible. I took the stairs, gripping the railing, counting each step to stay focused. Second floor, first floor, lobby. I heard them before I saw them. The wedding party was posing by the fountain. Emma at the center in my dress, David's arm around her waist. She was laughing, head thrown back, exactly the way I laughed. I tried to run but stumbled, catching myself on a pillar. A hotel employee rushed over. "Ma'am, are you all right?" I tried to speak but my tongue wouldn't cooperate. He was already pulling out his radio, probably thinking I was hammered. I pointed desperately at the wedding party. "That's not me," I managed. He looked confused, following my finger. Emma was kissing David's cheek for the photographer. My bridesmaids were adjusting her train. My mother was wiping happy tears. "Security to lobby," he said into his radio. "We have an intoxicated guest." I shook my head frantically, trying to pull away, but my legs buckled. He caught me, his grip firm but not unkind. "Let's get you somewhere safe," he said. Emma must have seen the commotion. She whispered something to the photographer, then glided over in my dress, concern painted perfectly on her face. "Oh my goodness," she gasped, covering her mouth. "Emma, what are you doing?" The security guard looked between us, understanding dawning. Identical twins, one in a wedding dress, one in a slip, soaking wet, clearly drugged. "I'm so sorry," Emma continued, tears springing to her eyes on command. "This is my sister. She's been having a hard time with my engagement. We thought she was doing better." "No," I croaked. "I'm Sarah. She's Emma." But even I could hear how insane it sounded. I was the one who looked crazy, hair plastered to my head, makeup running, pupils dilated from whatever she'd given me. David approached, worry creasing his forehead. This was my chance. He would know me. There's something deeply unsettling about how methodically Emma studied Sarah's life. Those color-coded spreadsheets feel like more than just obsession, like she's been planning this specific moment for months. He had to. "David," I reached for him. "Baby, it's me." He stepped back, the small movement shattering something inside me. Emma took his hand, playing the concerned bride perfectly. "She's been doing this for weeks," Emma said softly, pretending to be me. "We tried to get her help." "The birthmark," I said desperately. "You have a birthmark on your thigh." David's face went red. Emma squeezed his hand, a gesture I recognized as my own. "She must have seen it when she broke into our apartment," Emma said. "Remember? When we found her in our bed? That had never happened." But David was nodding, creating false memories to make sense of the scene before him. The security guard's radio crackled. "Should we call the police?" he asked. "No," Emma said quickly. "She's family. We'll handle this. Could you just help us get her somewhere quiet? Maybe one of the conference rooms?" They were all looking at me with pity now. My bridesmaids, my parents, David. In their eyes, I was the unstable sister who'd snapped at her twin's wedding. The security guard and David each took an arm, guiding me away from the lobby. I tried to resist but had no strength left. Emma followed, still playing the concerned sister. They brought me to a small conference room off the main hallway. Emma asked everyone to give us a moment alone. The security guard hesitated. "I'll be fine," she assured him. "She's my sister. She won't hurt me." When the door closed, her mask finally dropped. The concerned expression vanished, replaced by something cold and triumphant. "You should see yourself," she said. Pathetic. I lunged at her, but she easily sidestepped. I crashed into chairs, sending them toppling. The noise would bring security back, but I didn't care. "They'll figure it out," I gasped. "You can't be me forever, can I?" She smoothed my dress, her dress now. "I know everything. Your first date at that Italian place. The song you danced to in the kitchen last Tuesday. The way you bite your lip when you're nervous." She demonstrated, and it was perfect. Eerily, horrifyingly perfect. "You made it so easy," she continued. "Always posting everything online. Always talking about your perfect relationship. Did you think I wasn't listening?" "David will know," I insisted. "When you're alone, he'll know." "Will he?" She smiled my smile. "I've been preparing for months. I know exactly what he expects." The door opened. My mother peered in, concern etched on her face, but she was looking at Emma, not me. "Sweetheart, the photographer needs you back. We can deal with," she glanced at me, "this situation after the ceremony." "Of course, Mom." Emma kissed her cheek, another gesture stolen from me. "Could you stay with her? Make sure she doesn't hurt herself?" My mother nodded, entering the room like she was approaching a wild animal. Emma paused at the door, looking back at me one last time. "Don't worry," she said sweetly. "I'll take good care of your life." The door clicked shut behind Emma, leaving me alone with my mother. She stood by the entrance, wringing her hands, her wedding outfit pristine while I sat there soaked and shaking. I tried to stand, but my legs wobbled like jelly. The substances Emma had given me were still coursing through my system, making every movement feel like swimming through molasses. My mother approached cautiously and helped me to a chair. Her touch was gentle but distant, like she was handling something fragile and dangerous. I grabbed her wrist, trying to make her understand. She pulled away and stepped back, shaking her head sadly. I pointed at myself, then at the door where Emma had left. My mother just patted my shoulder and told me to rest. She thought I was having a breakdown. They all did. Emma had laid the groundwork perfectly, telling everyone about my supposed jealousy, my attempts to sabotage her happiness. The conference room had a small bathroom attached. I stumbled toward it, using the wall for support. My mother followed, probably worried I'd hurt myself. In the mirror, I saw why everyone believed Emma's story. My hair was matted from the shower water, makeup streaking down my face in dark rivers. My slip clung to me, transparent in places. I looked exactly like the unstable sister Emma had described. I turned on the faucet and splashed more water on my face, trying to clear the fog from my brain. The cold helped, but not enough. I needed to think clearly, to find a way to prove who I really was. But Emma knew everything about me. Every detail, every memory, every inside joke with David. My mother handed me paper towels, watching me with that same pitying expression. I dried my face and tried to steady my breathing. The ceremony would start soon. Emma would walk down the aisle in my dress, say my vows, kiss my fiancé, unless I could stop her. I searched the bathroom for anything useful. No windows, no phones, just hotel toiletries and paper products. My mother stood in the doorway, blocking my exit without seeming aggressive about it. She was just being protective, making sure her troubled daughter didn't cause a scene at her sister's wedding. Back in the conference room, I noticed a pitcher of water on the side table. I drank directly from it, ignoring the glasses. The more I could dilute the substances, the better chance I had. My mother watched disapprovingly, but didn't stop me. Time was slipping away. I could hear activity in the hallway, guests arriving, the excited chatter of a wedding day. My wedding day. I had to get out of this room. I approached the door, but my mother gently blocked my path. She suggested I lie down on the small couch, maybe take a nap before the ceremony. Her voice was soothing, the way she used to talk to us when we were sick as children, but I wasn't sick. I was trapped. The door opened and my father entered, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. He'd never liked formal wear. He took in the scene, me, disheveled and desperate, my mother playing guardian. His face fell. I reached for him, but he stepped back, just like David had. Emma had gotten to him too. He mentioned something about getting help after the wedding, finding someone I could talk to. The words blurred together as tears stung my eyes. My own parents didn't recognize me. My father left to check on the ceremony preparations. Through the open door, I glimpsed the hallway filling with guests in their finest clothes. The wedding coordinator rushed past, clipboard in hand, making sure everything was perfect for the bride. For Emma, I had to try something different. Fighting them wasn't working. I needed to be smarter than Emma, to use her own perfectionism against her. She'd studied me for months, but she couldn't know everything. There had to be something only the real Sarah would know. I sat back down, pretending to calm myself. My mother relaxed slightly, probably thinking the fight had gone out of me. She started talking about how beautiful Emma looked in the dress, how happy she seemed. Each word was a knife, but I nodded along, playing the role of the defeated sister. The substances were starting to wear off, clarity returning in small waves. I could feel my fingers and toes properly now, the numbness receding, but I kept my movements slow and clumsy, letting them think I was still heavily sedated. My mother's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. The photographer was ready for more shots. She told me she'd be right back, just needed to check on something. I nodded drowsily, slumping in my chair. The moment she left, I sprang into action. The door wasn't locked from the outside this time. They thought I was too drugged to escape. I peered into the hallway. Wedding guests milled about, but no one from the wedding party was visible. I slipped out, keeping close to the wall. My slip was still damp, clinging uncomfortably, but I had bigger problems. I needed to find David before the ceremony started. He was the only one who might listen, who might notice something off about Emma's performance. The hotel was massive, with multiple ballrooms and event spaces. I didn't even know which one held my wedding. Our wedding. I followed the flow of guests, trying to blend in despite my appearance. Several people gave me strange looks, but no one stopped me. I passed a supply closet and ducked inside. Housekeeping uniforms hung on hooks. I grabbed one, pulling it on over my slip. It was too big, but it was better than looking like an escaped patient. I finger-combed my hair and wiped the remaining makeup smudges from my face. Back in the hallway, I looked more like staff than a wedding crasher. I grabbed a stack of towels from a cart, using them as cover as I searched for the wedding venue. My legs were steadier now, the substances continuing to fade. I found the right ballroom by the flowers, white roses and baby's breath, exactly what I'd chosen months ago. Through the cracked door, I could see the space transformed into my dream wedding. Hundreds of candles, flowing white fabric, an altar covered in flowers. It was perfect, and it was about to be stolen. The bridal party was nowhere in sight, probably taking photos in another location, but I could see David's groomsmen gathered near the altar, joking and straightening their ties. My heart ached. Those were our friends, people who'd known us for years. Surely they'd noticed something wrong with Emma's impersonation. I set down the towels and crept closer. The wedding coordinator appeared, ushering everyone to their places. The ceremony was about to begin. Panic clawed at my throat. I was running out of time. The music started, soft and romantic. The doors at the back of the ballroom opened. The bridesmaids began their procession, smiling and glowing in their matching dresses. I'd chosen that exact shade of lavender because it complemented everyone's skin tone. Then came the flower girl, my cousin's daughter, scattering rose petals with serious concentration. The ring bearer followed, David's nephew, looking uncomfortable in his tiny tuxedo. Talk about method acting gone wrong. Emma spent months studying Sarah like she was preparing for an Oscar, except the prize is someone else's entire life. The music changed to the wedding march. Everyone stood. My stomach twisted into knots. Emma appeared in the doorway, arm in arm with our father. She'd chosen to walk with him instead of alone, even though I'd planned to walk by myself. A small detail, but it gave me hope. She didn't know everything. She looked radiant in my dress, every inch the blushing bride. The veil covered her face, but I could see her smile through the delicate fabric. My smile. She'd perfected it. I had to act now. Once she reached the altar, once the ceremony began, it would be too late. But what could I do? Burst in screaming that I was the real bride? They'd just think Emma's crazy sister had escaped. I watched David waiting at the altar, his face full of love and anticipation. He was about to marry the wrong woman, my twin sister. The thought made me physically ill. Emma glided down the aisle, taking her time, savoring every moment. The guests smiled and dabbed at their eyes. Our grandmother blew her a kiss. Our aunts whispered about how beautiful she looked. I noticed something else. Emma was holding her bouquet wrong. She had it gripped tightly in both hands, centered at her waist. I always held bouquets lower, cradled in one hand with the other resting on top. A tiny detail no one else would notice, but I did. She reached the altar. Our father kissed her cheek through the veil and placed her hand in David's. The symbolism of that gesture, giving me away to my husband, made my chest tight with rage. The officiant began speaking, welcoming everyone to the celebration of Sarah and David's love. Each word was torture. Emma stood there in my place, about to speak my vows, promise my life to my fiancé. I couldn't let this happen, but I also couldn't just rush in. I needed a plan, something that would make them see the truth without dismissing me as the crazy sister. The officiant asked if anyone had any objections. The traditional moment where someone could speak up. My heart pounded. This was it. This was my chance. But before I could move, Emma turned slightly, scanning the crowd, looking for me, making sure I wasn't there to ruin her moment. Her movement was subtle, but I caught it. David didn't seem to notice, too focused on what he thought was his bride. The moment passed. The ceremony continued. They were moving on to the vows. I backed away from the door, my mind racing. There had to be another way. Emma had prepared for months, but she'd made mistakes. The bouquet hold, walking with our father. Small things, but they added up. I remembered something else. The vows. David and I had written our own, spending weeks perfecting them. We'd kept them secret from each other, wanting to surprise one another on our wedding day. Emma couldn't know what I'd written. She'd have to improvise. The service corridor ran alongside the ballroom. I found another door, this one behind the altar area. Through the crack, I could hear David beginning his vows. His voice was thick with emotion as he spoke about the moment he knew I was the one, how I'd changed his life, how he couldn't wait to start our future together. My eyes burned with tears. Those words were meant for me, not the imposter standing across from him. Then it was Emma's turn. I held my breath, listening. She started strong, talking about love and commitment and partnership, generic words that could apply to any couple. But as she continued, I heard the hesitation. She was struggling, trying to sound like me while creating vows on the spot. David's expression shifted slightly. A tiny furrow appeared between his brows. He knew something was off. My vows would have been specific, personal, full of inside jokes and shared memories. Emma was giving him greeting card sentiments. She must have sensed his confusion because she suddenly stopped mid-sentence. The pause stretched too long. The guests shifted uncomfortably. The officiant looked concerned. Emma recovered, laughing softly and blaming wedding nerves. She continued with the vows, but the damage was done. David was looking at her differently now, studying her through the veil. This was my opening. If I could just get to him, make him see. The service door opened and a catering staff member entered carrying a tray. I grabbed their arm, whispering urgently that there was an emergency with the bride. They looked confused but concerned. I pointed toward the altar, where Emma was finishing her stumbling vows. The staff member hurried forward, discreetly approaching the wedding coordinator. They whispered together, both glancing at Emma. The coordinator looked alarmed and started moving toward the altar. Emma noticed the movement. Her voice faltered again. David reached for her hand, probably thinking she was having a panic attack. The coordinator reached them, leaning in to whisper something to Emma. I couldn't hear what was said, but Emma's body language changed instantly. She stiffened, her grip on David's hand tightening. She shook her head at the coordinator, who looked even more concerned. The guests were murmuring now, wondering what was happening. Our mother half rose from her seat in the front row. The officiant cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the ceremony. Emma suddenly swayed, her free hand going to her forehead, a classic Emma move. When cornered, play the victim. David caught her, looking worried. The coordinator called for water. The ceremony ground to a halt. I used the chaos to slip into the ballroom through the service door. In my housekeeping uniform, I looked like staff responding to the emergency. I grabbed a glass of water from a nearby table and pushed through the crowd gathering around the altar. Emma was sitting on the altar steps, fanning herself with her bouquet. David knelt beside her, holding her hand. The veil had been pushed back, revealing her face. My face. But something in her eyes was pure Emma, calculating even in her distress. I approached with the water, keeping my head down. My hands shook as I offered the glass. Emma reached for it and our fingers brushed. Her eyes snapped to mine. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Twin sisters, identical in every way except the one that mattered. She knew who I was. I could see the recognition, the fear, the determination warring in her expression. She took the glass and sipped delicately, never breaking eye contact. Then she smiled, my smile, the one she'd practiced in the mirror. David was watching her with concern, but also something else, doubt. The failed vows had shaken him. He was looking at his bride differently, noticing things that didn't quite fit. Emma stood, smoothing my dress. She thanked me for the water, her voice pitched perfectly to match mine, but her hand trembled as she set down the glass. The substances she'd given me were wearing off, but the stress of maintaining her performance was showing. The officiant suggested they continue the ceremony. Emma nodded, turning back to David, but he hesitated, studying her face. His hand went to her chin, tilting her head up, looking for something, looking for me. I held my breath. This was the moment. Would he see through her disguise? Emma must have sensed the danger because she suddenly pulled him into a kiss. Not a sweet, wedding ceremony kiss. A desperate, passionate kiss meant to distract and convince. The guests applauded, thinking it was romantic spontaneity, but I saw David's surprise. We'd agreed to save our first kiss as husband and wife for after the pronouncement. It was a small thing, but it mattered to us, to me. Emma didn't know that. When they broke apart, David's expression was unreadable. Emma smiled brilliantly, suggesting they finish the ceremony. She was pushing too hard, trying to rush through before more cracks showed. The officiant looked uncertain but continued. They moved on to the ring exchange. David's hands were steady as he slipped the band onto Emma's finger, but his eyes kept searching her face. When it was Emma's turn, she fumbled with his ring. Her hands shook visibly now. The stress, the substances wearing off, the mounting pressure, it was all catching up to her. The ring slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a metallic ping that seemed to echo through the ballroom. David bent to retrieve it, and I saw my chance. I moved closer, ostensibly to help look for the ring. As he straightened, our eyes met, really met, and I saw the flash of recognition, quickly followed by confusion. He knew me, even in a housekeeping uniform, with my hair a mess and no makeup. He knew me, but how could I be here when I was also standing in a wedding dress at the altar? Emma grabbed his arm, pulling his attention back. She apologized for dropping the ring, blaming nerves again, but David wasn't listening. He was looking between us now, his confusion growing. The officiant prompted them to continue. Emma practically shoved the ring onto David's finger, her movements jerky and ungraceful. Nothing like the smooth, practiced motions we'd rehearsed. They were almost at the end. Once they were pronounced husband and wife, it would be legally binding. Emma would have won. I had to do something, but what? Everyone still thought I was the crazy sister. If I spoke up, they'd just remove me. Then I remembered. The unity candle. We'd included it in the ceremony at David's mother's request. A tradition from his family. Emma wouldn't know the special way his family did it, the words his grandmother had taught us to say. The officiant announced the unity candle ceremony. 2 taper candles sat waiting, along with the larger pillar candle they would light together. Emma picked up her candle confidently, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She didn't know what came next. David picked up his candle, waiting. When Emma just stood there, he prompted her gently, reminding her of the words. His grandmother leaned forward in her seat, eager to hear the traditional phrase. Why does Emma keep making these tiny mistakes if she studied Sarah for months? The bouquet grip, the ring fumbling, not knowing the family traditions. These details seem oddly careless for someone who planned this whole elaborate scheme so carefully. Emma's mouth opened and closed. She had no idea what to say. The silence stretched. The guests began to whisper. David's expression hardened, pieces falling into place. I stepped forward, not aggressively, just enough to be seen. David's eyes found mine again, and this time I mouthed the words, our words, the phrase his grandmother had taught us, that we'd practiced together, laughing at our terrible pronunciation of the Italian. His face went white. He looked at Emma, then at me, then back at Emma. The candle shook in his hand. Emma tried to salvage the moment, making up some generic statement about unity and love, but the damage was done. David's family was murmuring, his grandmother shaking her head. That wasn't right. That wasn't what Sarah had promised to say. David set down his candle without lighting the unity candle. The break in tradition sent ripples through the crowd. He stepped back from Emma, his eyes never leaving her face. The officiant looked lost, unsure how to proceed. Emma reached for David, but he moved away. His gaze found mine again, and I saw the war in his eyes. Logic said his bride was standing next to him in a wedding dress, but his heart knew better. Emma's composure finally cracked. She grabbed David's arm, insisting they finish the ceremony. Her voice was too sharp, too desperate, not like me at all. The mask was slipping, and everyone could see it. Our mother stood up, calling out to ask if everything was all right. Our father joined her, both looking concerned. The wedding coordinator hovered nearby, clearly unsure whether to intervene. David pulled free from Emma's grip. He walked toward me, each step deliberate. The entire ballroom held its breath. When he reached me, he touched my face gently, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. I leaned into his touch, tears streaming down my face. His hand was warm and familiar and home. Emma made a sound behind him, something between a gasp and a snarl. David turned back to the altar, to the woman in the wedding dress. His voice was steady when he spoke, asking her to tell him about their first date, not where they went. Emma knew that. But what happened when the restaurant's fire alarm went off and they had to evacuate? Emma's face went blank. She hadn't researched that far. It wasn't in any of my social media posts or the stories I'd told. It was just a small, perfect moment between David and me, standing in the parking lot sharing breadsticks we'd grabbed on the way out, laughing at the absurdity of it all. The silence stretched. Emma's mouth worked, but no words came, because she wasn't there. She didn't know. David walked back to the altar, but not to Emma. He went to the officiant, speaking quietly. The officiant's eyes widened. He nodded, then addressed the crowd, announcing that the ceremony needed to be postponed due to unexpected circumstances. The ballroom erupted, guests talking over each other, our families converging on the altar, Emma's voice rising above it all, insisting everything was fine, demanding the ceremony continue. But David was walking back to me. He took my hand, and I felt the rightness of it, even as chaos swirled around us. Emma screamed my name, my actual name, and the last piece of her deception shattered. Security arrived, drawn by the commotion. The wedding coordinator was trying to herd guests out of the ballroom. Our parents were demanding answers, and Emma stood at the altar in my wedding dress, watching her perfect plan unravel. She tried one more time, running to our parents, sobbing about how I was ruining her wedding, but she'd She'd slipped, called herself Sarah, called me Emma. In her panic, she'd forgotten which role she was playing. Our mother's face changed, understanding dawning. She looked between us, seeing what she'd missed before. The way I stood, the way I held David's hand, 1,000 tiny details that screamed the truth. Emma realized her mistake. She tried to backtrack, but it was too late. The words were out there. Our father was asking questions now, his voice sharp. The bridesmaids clustered together, whispering, pointing out things they'd noticed but dismissed. David squeezed my hand, anchoring me as the truth spread through the room like wildfire. Emma's performance had been good, but not perfect. And now everyone was seeing the cracks, the places where she'd failed to completely become me. The security guards approached Emma, unsure what to do. This wasn't a typical wedding disruption. The coordinator was on her phone, probably calling hotel management. Our grandmother was crossing herself, muttering prayers in Italian. Emma made one last desperate play. She yanked off the veil and threw it at me, screaming that I'd stolen her life, that I'd taken everything from her. The words made no sense to the guests, but I understood. In her twisted mind, my happiness was theft. My relationship was something stolen from her. Our mother approached Emma slowly, like she was approaching a wounded animal. She spoke softly, using the tone she'd used when we were children, and Emma would have her meltdowns. But Emma was beyond soothing. She raged about unfairness, about always being second, about deserving love too. The wedding dress, my wedding dress, tore as Emma gestured wildly. The sound of ripping fabric was oddly final. The dream wedding was well and truly destroyed. David pulled me against him, shielding me from the worst of Emma's breakdown, but I couldn't look away. This was my sister, my twin, the person who'd shared my face but never understood my heart. Security finally intervened, gently but firmly escorting Emma from the ballroom. She fought them, still screaming, still insisting she was the real bride. Our parents followed, our mother crying, our father's face set in grim lines. The ballroom emptied slowly, guests unsure whether to stay or go. David's family surrounded us, his mother checking if I was okay, his grandmother patting my hand and muttering about evil eyes and protection prayers. The wedding coordinator approached hesitantly, asking if we wanted to proceed with the ceremony. I looked around at the chaos, overturned chairs, scattered flowers, the unity candle knocked over and rolling across the floor. This wasn't how I'd imagined my wedding day, but David was here, the man I loved, who'd seen through the deception when it mattered most. He'd chosen me, the real me, even when logic said otherwise. We decided to postpone, not cancel, just postpone. We needed time to process what had happened, to deal with Emma, to figure out how to move forward. The coordinator nodded, relieved, and began the process of sending guests home. David and I slipped out through the service corridor, avoiding the main areas where Emma might still be causing scenes. We found ourselves in the hotel garden, the space we'd originally considered for the ceremony before deciding on the ballroom. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. David pulled me close, and I finally let myself fall apart. The substances, the fear, the violation of having my identity stolen, it all hit at once. He held me through it, solid and real and mine. When the tears finally stopped, we sat on a stone bench, watching the stars appear. David asked me to tell him about our first date, and I did. Every detail, every moment, every feeling. He smiled at the parts Emma couldn't have known, the tiny imperfections that made the memory perfect. We talked about Emma, about the signs we'd missed, about how far back her obsession went. David admitted he'd felt something was off from the moment she'd walked down the aisle, but he'd pushed the feeling aside, telling himself it was just wedding nerves. The unity candle had been the final straw. His grandmother had pulled him aside weeks ago, making him promise his bride would say the traditional words. When Emma couldn't, he knew. Combined with all the other small wrong things, he knew. My phone, which Emma had hidden in the bridal suite, was returned by hotel staff. The missed calls and messages were overwhelming. Everyone wanted to know what had happened, if I was okay, if the wedding was still on. I turned it off. Tomorrow I would deal with the questions, the rescheduling, the legal implications of Emma's actions. Tonight I just wanted to be with David, to reclaim something from this disaster of a day. We ordered room service and ate in our honeymoon suite, still in our wedding clothes, or in my case, the borrowed housekeeping uniform. It wasn't the romantic dinner we'd planned, but it was real. No pretense, no performance, just us. David found the hotel's speaker system and played our first dance song. We swayed together in the middle of the suite, my head on his shoulder, his arms around me. This was what Emma had tried to steal but couldn't replicate, the quiet intimacy of two people who truly knew each other. As we danced, I thought about my sister. She was probably at a hospital by now, our parents making sure she got help. The obsession, the breakdown, the elaborate deception, it all pointed to something deeper than just jealousy. I felt sorry for her, despite everything. She'd wanted so desperately to be loved that she'd tried to steal someone else's life, but love couldn't be stolen or faked or forced. It had to be earned, built, nurtured. Emma had never understood that. The song ended, but we kept swaying. Outside, the hotel was probably buzzing with gossip about the wedding that wasn't. Tomorrow would bring complications and consequences, but tonight, in this quiet moment, I had everything that mattered. David whispered that he loved me, the real me, and I believed him. Emma might have stolen my dress, my venue, my carefully planned day, but she couldn't steal this. The way he looked at me, the way he knew me, the way we fit together, that was mine, that was real, that was worth more than any perfect wedding could ever be. The next morning arrived with harsh sunlight streaming through the hotel curtains. Italian grandmas don't mess around with wedding traditions. Emma picked the wrong unity candle phrase to flub. David's family intuition kicked in faster than hotel security, and suddenly everyone's playing spot the difference with the twins while Emma's having her villain breakdown moment. My head throbbed from the lingering effects of Emma's substances, and David was already on the phone with the wedding coordinator, working through cancellation logistics. I watched him pace the room, his wedding suit wrinkled from sleeping in it, handling each vendor call with patient determination. The hotel manager knocked, entering with security footage from yesterday. They needed statements about Emma drugging me, but I waved them away. No police reports. This stayed in the family. The manager looked uncomfortable but agreed to keep it internal, mentioning only that Emma was banned from the property. My phone had accumulated over 100 messages overnight. Family members demanding explanations, friends who'd witnessed the chaos, vendors confirming cancellations. I scrolled through them numbly while David negotiated with the florist about donation options for the thousands of dollars of arrangements. My mother arrived at our suite around noon, her eyes red and puffy. She'd aged years overnight. Emma was at a psychiatric facility, she explained. Voluntary admission after the breakdown. The doctors mentioned something about delusional disorder, possible personality issues. She kept apologizing, saying she should have seen the signs, should have protected me. I let her talk while packing the honeymoon suite. The wedding dress hung in its bag, the tear Emma had made visible through the plastic. My mother touched it gently, then helped me fold the bridesmaid gifts I'd never gotten to distribute. We worked in silence, dismantling the remnants of my stolen wedding day. David's family arrived to help with the cleanup. His grandmother pressed protective charms into my hands, muttering about evil eyes and twins. His mother coordinated with the venue about donation options for the reception food. Everyone moved with quiet efficiency, transforming transforming the disaster into manageable tasks. The photographer sent the photos they'd taken before the ceremony imploded. Emma looked radiant in every shot, her impression of me nearly perfect, but studying them closely, I could see the differences. The way she held her shoulders, the angle of her chin, tiny tells that she wasn't me. David deleted them all without asking. We spent the afternoon in the hotel's business center, sending emails to guests, arranging gift returns, canceling the honeymoon flights. Each task felt like dismantling a dream piece by piece. David handled the legal aspects, confirming with a lawyer that no marriage had occurred since the ceremony wasn't completed. My father appeared around dinner time, looking haggard. He'd been at the hospital with Emma all day. She was sedated but stable, he reported. The doctors wanted to keep her for observation, start her on medication. He asked if I wanted to visit. I shook my head. Not yet, maybe not ever. The wedding party gathered in the hotel restaurant that evening. My bridesmaids hugged me tightly, sharing how they'd noticed things off about Emma but dismissed them. The groomsmen tried lightening the mood with jokes, but everything felt forced. We were all processing the surreal events, trying to make sense of how a wedding became an identity theft crisis. David and I left early, walking through the hotel garden where we'd hidden the night before. The wedding arch was still up, white roses wilting in the evening heat. We stood beneath it, holding hands, reclaiming the space from yesterday's chaos. No vows, no ceremony, just us standing together in the ruins of our wedding day. Back in our room, we ordered Chinese takeout and ate it in bed, still wearing the hotel bathrobes. David showed me his phone, friends asking what happened, his workplace wondering about his honeymoon absence. We crafted a simple response together. Family emergency, wedding postponed, thanks for understanding. No details, no drama. The hospital called around midnight. Emma was asking for me. The nurse said she was lucid, medicated, calmer. I declined. David held me as I cried, not from sadness but from exhaustion. The adrenaline that had carried me through was finally depleting, leaving me hollow and shaky. The next day brought practical concerns. Our apartment needed attention. Emma had been there, we discovered. Nothing stolen, but things moved slightly. My coffee mug in the wrong cabinet, David's shoes rearranged. Tiny invasions that made our home feel violated. We spent hours reclaiming the space, moving everything back, changing the locks. My workplace was understanding about extending my time off. My boss had heard garbled versions of the wedding disaster through office gossip. I kept the explanation minimal. Family crisis, sister's mental health, need another week. She approved it without questions, her expression sympathetic. David's office was equally accommodating. His coworkers sent a fruit basket with a card saying they were thinking of us. No mention of the wedding, just support. We ate the pears while deep cleaning our apartment, scrubbing away any trace of Emma's presence. My parents visited that evening, bringing takeout and updates. Emma was responding to medication, they said. The doctors were optimistic about treatment. She'd admitted to planning the impersonation for months, studying videos of me, practicing my mannerisms. The depth of her preparation was staggering. They wanted to know if I'd pressed charges. I refused. Criminal proceedings wouldn't help Emma's mental state, and I just wanted to move forward. My mother cried with relief. My father looked older, shoulders bent with the weight of having two daughters, one recovering from trauma, one causing it. The wedding vendors were mostly understanding about the last-minute cancellation. Some deposits were lost, but others offered credits for future events. The venue coordinator called personally, expressing sympathy and offering a discount if we decided to reschedule. David thanked her but made no commitments. Our friends organized a small gathering at someone's apartment that weekend. No mention of weddings or celebrations, just pizza and board games. Normal, easy companionship. I caught myself laughing at someone's terrible charades performance and realized it was the first genuine laugh since the wedding day. David and I started couples counseling the following week, not because our relationship was damaged, but to process the trauma together. The therapist specialized in family betrayal and identity issues. She listened to our story without judgment, helping us untangle the complex emotions around Emma's actions. The hardest part was the grief, not just for the wedding, but for the sister I'd thought I had. The therapist explained that Emma's fixation had likely been building since childhood, fed by comparison and competition. Twin dynamics were complex, she said, especially with identical twins where identity boundaries could blur. Work resumed eventually. My coworkers were curious but respectful, accepting my vague explanations about family drama. I threw myself into projects, grateful for the distraction of spreadsheets and meetings. Normalcy felt like a luxury after the chaos. David proposed again 3 weeks later. Not a grand gesture, just quiet words over morning coffee in our kitchen. He wanted to marry me, whenever I was ready, however I wanted. City hall, backyard barbecue, destination elopement. He didn't care about the how, just the who. I said yes, crying into my cereal. We told only our parents about the engagement renewal. My mother offered to help plan, but I declined gently. Whatever we did would be simple, private, far from the elaborate production Emma had infiltrated. My father understood, squeezing my hand with silent support. Emma sent a letter from the facility a month later. Her handwriting looked shaky, probably from medication. She apologized, sort of. The words were more about her pain than my violation. She wrote about feeling invisible next to me, about the unfairness of identical faces but different lives. The therapist had warned me about this. Early treatment often focused on the patient's perspective before developing true empathy. I didn't respond. David read the letter once, then we filed it away. Maybe someday I'd be ready to process Emma's perspective, but not yet. The wounds were too fresh, the betrayal too profound. Forgiveness might come eventually, but it wasn't required on anyone's timeline but mine. We married at City Hall 6 weeks later. David's parents and mine were the only witnesses. I wore a simple sundress from my closet, carried grocery store flowers. The ceremony took 15 minutes. The officiant stumbled over our names once and we all laughed. It was perfect in its imperfection. The small reception happened at David's parents' house. His grandmother cooked enough food for 50 people despite our group of 10. We ate in their backyard, stringing lights between trees, playing music from someone's phone. No photographers, no coordinators, no elaborate plans to steal. I danced with David as the sun set, our families chatting around us. This wasn't the wedding I dreamed of, but it was real. No performance, no pressure, just two people choosing each other in front of the people who mattered most. Emma's shadow lingered at the edges, but it couldn't touch this moment. My mother took one photo on her phone, David and I laughing at something his father said, cake frosting on his nose, unposed, unplanned, unpolished. It became my favorite picture of us, proof that joy could exist after trauma, that stolen moments couldn't erase real ones. The marriage certificate felt heavier than paper should. Official, legal, binding in ways Emma's performance could never have been. We framed it and hung it in our bedroom, a private reminder of what was real versus what was imitation. Life settled into new rhythms, work, home, therapy, repeat. David and I grew closer through the shared trauma, our communication deeper after seeing how assumptions and silence had enabled Emma's deception. Something feels deliberately vague about Emma's letter. She writes about feeling invisible but doesn't really explain why she picked David's grandmother's wedding tradition to expose herself. The timing of her voluntary admission right after getting caught seems awfully convenient for avoiding real consequences here. We talked about everything now. now, even tiny concerns that might have gone unmentioned before. Emma stayed in treatment. My parents visited her weekly, reporting small improvements. She was painting in art therapy, they said, working through her identity issues with colors instead of words. I wasn't ready to see her work, to risk seeing my face reflected through her distorted lens. The 1-year anniversary of the almost wedding arrived quietly. David and I took the day off work, spending it doing absolutely nothing special. We slept late, made pancakes, watched terrible movies. The date had lost its power to hurt, transformed into just another square on the calendar. My parents mentioned Emma might be released soon, transitioning to outpatient treatment. The news sat heavy in my stomach. I'd built a life without her, established boundaries that felt protective and necessary. Her return to the world, even a limited one, threatened that peace. David and I discussed moving. Not far, just enough to create physical distance from the memories embedded in every local landmark. The hotel where she'd drugged me, the venues we'd visited together, the restaurants where she'd studied my mannerisms. Fresh scenery felt like freedom. We found a place 2 hours away, close enough for family visits, far enough for breathing room. The apartment was smaller but brighter, with no history of Emma's presence. We painted the walls ourselves, choosing colors she'd never seen, creating a space entirely ours. The move felt like closing a chapter. Packing our belongings, I found the nail scissors I'd used to escape the bathroom, the housekeeping uniform I'd worn to reclaim my identity. Physical reminders of the worst day becoming just objects, losing their emotional weight. Our new neighbors knew nothing of our story. To them, we were just another young couple, recently married, starting fresh. The anonymity felt like a gift. No sympathetic looks, no whispered gossip, no careful questions about how I was doing. I started running in our new neighborhood, something I'd never done before. The rhythmic movement helped process lingering anxiety, my feet pounding out the complex emotions that still surfaced unexpectedly. David sometimes joined me, our synchronized breathing a form of wordless communication. Emma sent another letter to our old address, forwarded by the post office. This one was different, shorter, more focused on my experience than hers. Progress, the therapist would probably say. I read it once, then tucked it away with the first one. Still not ready to respond, but no longer angry at its existence. My mother called one evening, crying. Happy tears, she clarified. Emma had made a breakthrough in therapy, finally understanding the violation of her actions. She wanted to apologize properly someday, when I was ready. If I was ever ready. No pressure, just hope. I hung up feeling oddly empty. Emma's progress was good for her, necessary for her healing, but it didn't erase my experience, didn't rebuild the trust she'd shattered. Her journey and mine had diverged that day in the hotel bathroom. Maybe they'd intersect again someday, maybe they wouldn't. David found me sitting on our new balcony, watching sunset paint the unfamiliar skyline. He brought tea and a blanket, wrapping both around me without asking what was wrong. He'd learned to read my Emma moods, the particular stillness that meant I was processing something about her. We sat together as darkness fell, not talking about sisters or weddings or stolen identities, just existing in the quiet moment, in the life we'd built from the wreckage of our original plans. It wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined, but it was ours. Real, imperfect, and impossible to steal. Look at David, rolling in with tea and a blanket like a mind reader. Someone get that man a medal for fluency in Emma-style silences. If you made it to the end, drop a comment. I love reading all your comments.